Okay, we can go video mute, Johnnie. Johnnie, can you hear me okay? Okay, good.
Hi, good morning. This is Ann McNeil, the Master Wealth Builder, helping you to build a stronger and better business and life. And I am very excited to continue to come on to share this principle of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill called decision. Every Saturday morning, on behalf of the International Mastermind Association, my co-host and myself, Galen Bingham and Dr. Peter James, we share from the book Think and Grow Rich every Saturday. Yes, 52 weeks. And I always like to start by asking each of you to ask yourself the question, the same question that was asked of Napoleon Hill by Andrew Carnegie. When Carnegie asked Napoleon Hill, he said, would you be willing to take 20 years of your life and create a philosophy of success based upon researching hundreds and thousands of people who have great success, but also great failure, but I will not pay you a dime? That was the question. And that is the question today that I like to encourage all of us to start by asking, would you make the decision to say yes? You see, Napoleon Hill said yes, and he answered the question, and he invested more than 20 years in researching the philosophy of success. And on behalf of the International Mastermind Association, we come here every month and we take one principle per month and discuss with awesome guests that principle. So today, as we discuss with our special guest, the principle of decision, I'd like to start the conversation off by asking each of you to decide to decide. Yes. How about make a decision about exactly what it is that you desire? You see, Napoleon Hill tells us that after he researched and studied over 25,000 men and women, he found that the lack of decision was at the head of the list for one of the most major causes of failure. I'd like to suggest that making a decision is also at the head of the list of most very successful individuals. But what are they deciding? Well, how about starting with a decision about your spiritual life? I like to focus on 10 different areas of my life. And in preparation for this podcast, I began to realize that it's the little bitty decisions, the itty bitty decisions that we all make that detects success or failure in our lives. Spiritually, you want to decide who you're going to serve. When it comes to your family, decide what's most important. With your time, talents, and treasure that you share with the world, how about your family? Have you decided what is it that you desire for your family? How about your finances? A little decision to invest over $20 a month. How about the finance area of your life? Deciding what you want your life to look like in the future, a small amount versus a large amount over a long period of time. But what about your health? How about deciding to be health conscious and making the little decision, like this morning, and I say this, I had to decide whether or not I was going to turn over, and sometimes I do, or whether I was going to turn out of that bed and put on those sneakers an hour and a half before this podcast. The little decisions that each of us make every single day. What about your education? How about deciding to read 5 or 10 minutes a day? Not the entire book, maybe a page, maybe a paragraph. I like reading a proverb a day. I don't get it all in, but if I can read one verse, one line, not the chapter. How about making a decision about your own personal development and writing down a plan of action? It's a little decision to decide. What about your profession, your business, or your career? Decide. What is it that you want to be known for in your business and or your career? It's that little decision or lack of decision. But what about your recreational area of your life? We're going to talk about that on the podcast today. All of us have made decisions to travel internationally. A little decision. It's not about the money. It is about your desire to decide what it is that you want. How about your civic involvement and giving and serving? I'm a Rotarian, and our motto is service above self. And for over 20 years, I desire to serve. It's a little decision. It's a small amount of time. It's a small amount of an investment. What are you deciding you want for the civic area of your life or where you want to serve? And then finally, but not last, is creativity. Decide to sing that song, write that book, be creative, journal. You want to decide those areas of your life that makes a better quality of life in every area of your life. But as you can see, I'm very passionate about this decision. And I tell our co-hosts all the time, this month, this principle, I think, is the very best of all of them. But that is why you have to decide which one is your favorite of the 13. But of course, I'm not here by myself. So let me bring on and share with all of you our co-host today, none other than, yes, sir, Dr. Peter James. Good morning. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Good morning, Ann McNeil. I hope you are doing well. I hope everyone is doing well who is joining us on this call. And you started us out with some deep reflection on the decisions in our lives, the decisions that we want to make, the decisions that we need to make, and sometimes, unfortunately, the decisions that we don't make, but we need to or want to, for that matter, as well. So as we dive on into this conversation with our very special guest today, I wonder if you can take a step back and ask yourself, what decisions do I need to make? What big decisions, yes, but even as Anna was mentioning, what are the small decisions, those small little things that will add up to the bigger decisions as we continue to move forward? And I think that's where we're going to hone in a little bit today, not the bigger ones, Ann, the smaller ones. And I'm very excited to identify some of the smaller ones in my life, some of the smaller ones in Ann's life, some of the smaller ones in our special guest life, or business or career that have made the difference, that have those small, powerful decisions that have made the difference. And as you all reflect on what that looks like for you, let us know. Let us know what that looks like. And let us know if you have questions around that, because sometimes making these small decisions by yourself can be a little bit challenging. Sometimes you need a partner. So, Ann, I'm ready to dive on into this conversation today.
All right, well, let's bring on our partner, our special guest today. And she's come back over and over, and we are so excited to have her and have her share with you her story. Our special guest today is none other than Miss Johnnie Lloyd. Johnnie Lloyd, come on to the platform. She speaks strategically supporting growth and development of female executives who are kingdompreneurs, unleashing their superpowers, preparing people and organizations for greater levels of productivity and profitability. The problem she targets is resources, management of things, and leadership of people, with a goal of making hard things understandable and executable. As a motivational speaker, author, productivity, and profitability consultant, she specializes in personal, professional, and organizational development. Certified as a master coach for the Napoleon Hill Institute, serial entrepreneur. That is who she is. And so help me welcome to the podcast today our special guest, none other than Miss Johnnie Lloyd. Good morning, Johnnie. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Good morning. I am excited about being here. I am it is always a joy to be here in this platform. It is amazing. And I just love the energy, the vibration that happens here is so powerful. And so it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm looking forward to this amazing principle, because this principle will change your life. The decision of making a decision will absolutely impact every area of your life. So it is a pleasure to be here. And I'm looking forward to what's next.
All right. Well, what we're going to do next, Johnnie, and you've been here enough to know we like to start with the 13 principles. And so we're going to go back to Peter, and he's going to tee that up for us this morning and share with us the 13 principles. And then we're going to come back and we will delve into your story. So, Peter, back to you.
Absolutely there, Ann. Excited again to have this discussion about these small decisions in our life with Johnnie Lloyd for sure. But as I reflect on this Think and Grow Rich text, reading this Think and Grow Rich text is a small decision. As you even mentioned, we have 13 principles, 13 chapters, right? And if you look at this book, it can be very daunting for someone who has never read a book like this. It can be, albeit some may say it's even boring, but there is so much richness to it if you break it down into small bits, if you break it down into small decisions. And so now, as you all reflect on this video that you're about to watch, ask yourself, how might I now be able to incorporate these small decisions, these small principles, these small chapters into my life on a more regular basis? And again, as I always say, if you're not quite sure how to go about doing it, let's have a powerful conversation about it.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Yeah, and those are those 13 steps that we look at every single week. Excited to be diving on into that decision step today. So again, once again, as everyone is listening to what these decisions are in your life, Johnnie, Lloyd, I would love to direct the conversation back to you. And you're no stranger to this show by any stretch of the imagination. So I would like to first ask you about some of the bigger decisions that you have made in your life historically. And then ultimately, we're going to get to some of the smaller ones. But as you reflect on your life, your career, your business, give us some examples, if you could, of the bigger decisions that were powerful, monumental in your life, if you could.
Right. One of the biggest decisions I've ever made in my life was to get off the floor. And somebody says, the floor? Yes, I was on orange shag carpet. And I had a degree. I had a great job. I put quotes around that, but I was homeless.
Mm.
That decision to get me and my daughter off that carpet was one of the biggest and the best decisions I ever made. And how I did that was because it was so painful to be where I was that I had no other choice but to get up. But it was an internal decision. It was in a moment that I had to decide to go left or go right. And I decided that I was going to no longer be a drifter, because you can drift and be an intellectual, you can be saved, sanctified, talking in tongues. You can be a drifter and have an education and have resources. You can still drift. So I was drifting. Yeah, I was homeless, but I was drifting mentally, physically, emotionally, because I was going through a really hard time in my life. And that drifting got me off of the O of the orange to a country called Okinawa, Japan. And so because of that decision, one decision, that I was crying, laying on somebody else's floor, and I decided this is where I was, but this is not who I am. Did you hear me? This is where you are in the moment, whatever you're going through, but this is not who you are. So there was greater in me. I had to tap into the greater in me. Afraid, broke, busted, all of that, right? Changing my mindset. And that's where I reached back and I tapped into the principle from Napoleon Hill. I knew about the book. My parents had used the book. They had gave me the book, signed it and all that cute stuff. I had looked at it before, but I wasn't utilizing the principle. And that's one of the biggest decisions I've ever made. And that impacted every decision I've made since then.
Wow, powerful, powerful. And your thoughts or more questions? Can you hear us, Ann McNeil? You might not be able to hear us. So Johnnie, we're going to come back.
Of course, I'm sorry. Of course, I was on mute. From past experiences, I had to learn to mute myself. So the YouTube other Ann McNeil, as she's talking over this Ann McNeil, right, Johnnie Lloyd? That's what we experienced last time. So I'm learning to make sure I mute myself. Johnnie, and I want to go back, both of you, to something that Napoleon Hill shared. And I'd just like to just go back to the story of the signing of the Declaration and the decision that was made, which we heard or read that it was really more about life and death. And I think back to the story before the story, there was a decision that was made by a few men who were sick and tired of being sick and tired. A few men made a decision that they were sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now, we have on live with us today, I believe, many individuals who are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And then there are going to be thousands of you who will listen to this podcast in the future. And you may find in your life that you're at a point where you are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So we want to thank Smitty, Shannon, Carlos, LaJoyce, all of you that's listening in, Sharice, Imelda, all of you that's listening in with us today. Are you willing to make a decision about being sick and tired of blank? Are you willing to put in the chat whatever it is that is your blank? We all come to a point in life and business and our careers where we have to decide. So, Johnnie, my question for you is, what you shared with us about the orange carpet, but take us all the way back to your childhood. And you had to make a decision about some things. And maybe those decisions, if you will, brought you to this place. We also want to thank Dolly Ferguson, who's listening and watching live with us on the Zoom. Thank you again. Also to you, Dolly. If you have any questions for our guests, please put them in the chat, or for any of us, please put put the questions in the chat or even your comments. But Johnnie, I want to come back to you. Take us all the way back to your childhood and share with us a decision that you had to make. Small decision. Now, Peter talked about the big decisions, but let's go back to a small decision back during your childhood that you had to make about blank. What would that, just maybe give us one or two of those?
Wow, that's an amazing question, because recently during the boot camp under the Institute, I actually tapped into some of those decisions, some of those thought processes, right? One of the things that I was trained at as a child is to always give, to help everybody else. However, it wasn't about me. And because of the faith, because of all of those things, my mother taught me that everybody else is more important. Everybody else is who you serve. And because of those decisions, I came through life giving until I was empty, not considering the decisions and how they impacted me. So what I'm going to say is this: that decision led me to some other issues that caused me to get on the orange shag carpet. Okay. And it also caused me to get off the orange shag carpet. Because what happened is nothing wrong with giving. There's nothing wrong with selling. There's nothing wrong with serving other people. However, you have to come. I had to learn that I need to be full, that I needed to feed myself. And going back to the financial side that I'm always in is, I'm a bank. And if a person comes to take a withdrawal out of me and I'm empty, then what happens is it hurts me. It's no deposit, no return. You can't get something from an empty vessel. So I realized that I needed to make key decisions in my life to cause me to be better. And by doing that, everybody else would be better. The other thing is there's 7 of us total, and we just had an amazing time in Florida. And what happened during that time is, when you all sit around the table, you go back to when you were really young and then you tell on each other. We noticed who we were at that moment. I've always been a person who found resources. I've always been the one who went out and made mud pies and sold them to everybody. Yeah, I sold them and had things like that were happening. So those little things in my life helped me to become who I am. Even though there is the side that I said I was giving to everybody, it's not the problem that I was giving. The problem is I didn't know how to receive. I had to make the decision to receive and add me to my calendar and add me to my priorities. So those are the things that I say, the small tweaks that we make in life to cause us to be better in the moment, to cause us to say, yes, that is what I went through. And that's what I learned, but how does it serve you today? Is it applicable? Is it practical? And when I say that, that doesn't mean it was bad. However, in the nowness of your decision-making, in your today, not your future, not your past, but in your today, how is it serving you and how will it help you serve others? So those are the things I would say that happened in my past. We had a great family. And it's so funny. Everybody came to our house and we were confused. Like, why are you coming to our house? We're the one that has the structure. We're the one who can't do things. You have to come in and say, yes, ma'am, no, sir. Those are the things that help me build character and integrity. Don't miss that. Don't miss that character and integrity will take you to places that nothing else will. And that those small decisions that we give our children, I encourage people with children right now, to give them small opportunities to make a decision, small opportunities to let them know that their voice matters. And that's what my parents did. And so when you, in the closet, my grandson, my daughter did the same thing. She used to go out in polka dots and stripes. And I'd be like, okay. And she asked, do you like what you have on? She said, yes, I look cute. And I'd say, okay. And she sometimes come home and somebody else would have a different opinion. I said, but did you think you were cute? The decision. She said, yes. I said, then it doesn't matter what other people think. So those are the things that we embrace. The small little things are the habits of decisions. Those are the things that we embrace and move forward on. So that's what I would say.
I see Peter shaking his head as if he's trying to get in here, but I'll ask my question after you, Peter. Go ahead.
All right. I definitely want to acknowledge there's so much stuff coming in on the chat on YouTube there, Ann McNeil, and I believe it has a lot to do with how you opened up the session today. Because one of the questions that I know that resonated in my mind is, what am I tired of? What am I bothered by? What types of cycles am I tired of repeating? So without giving any names, I hear these people on the chat, individuals who are listening, saying, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being distracted and going in cycles. Others are saying, I'm sick and tired of disappointing myself. Others are saying, oh, you know, I'm tired of being disrespected at work. I submitted a harassment letter yesterday. So what resonates with me around that, Ann McNeil, is that, to your point, is what are we tired of that we know it's time to make a decision about? And these decisions don't always have to be big decisions, but what small shifts might we need to make beginning today, like right now, to decide to do right now in order to change the trajectory of our future? Your thoughts, Ann?
Yeah, let me, I cannot wait to respond. And it's not a good thing because I'm practicing learning to listen. And one of the things that I heard and also read from Atomic,
Atomic Habits?
Atomic Habits, yes.
Atomic Habits, thank you. And it's the whole idea of, you know, we really want to learn to listen more than we talk in terms of habits, if you will, because oftentimes when people are talking, we're listening to see what we're going to say in response. So I'm guilty, pray for me. Now, to answer that question, I'm excited. To answer that question, what I am learning from reading this book since 1979, every single week on one of these podcasts or coaching or whatever it is, once you make a decision, the way will present itself. But what are you deciding? And I want to share this with everybody listening, present and future. I can only share my story, and Johnny's and yours are the same. Once we got greater clarity about what we desired, that's why this author says the very first principle. That's why this author said the very first principle. That's why this author said the very first principle is what? I want everybody to put it in the chat. Because all of us that's listening, really, put it in the chat. I want you to put it in the chat because once you type that word or once you say it out loud and once you decide how much money you want, that's what he asked in the decision principle. Once you decide what you're going to do to make the money, once you decide what day you want the money by, once you decide your plan of action, once you decide to create an affirmation statement, once you decide to repeat it twice a day, that job you want to leave, stay. That divorce you want to stay. That negative thing you want to just stay and focus on that which you desire. Because a large and this is I'm speaking from personal experience. One of the reasons that we have a lack of clarity and indecision is because we've not decided what we want. When I personally decided I wanted $1,000 and I didn't know how to get it, and I spent the last 40 plus years figuring out now how to teach other people how to do the same thing. But what's the same thing? A decision to desire something that you want that's greater than yourself. Yes, we do the money. Yes, we talk about the money first, but the money, and I love what Jim Rohn says, his mentor told him, hey, Jim, become a millionaire, not for the money, but who you must become in the process of making the money. And Jim Rohn said, listen, I became a millionaire and I lost it all. But he was right. Because of who I became as a millionaire, I could make it over and over and over again. That's what Jim Rohn said. I've proven that. I've done the same. And many of us on this podcast have done the same. But it all starts with your desire. So again, what is it that you desire and you decide? That's the key. You can desire a lot of things, but are you going to decide to do the work that is required to achieve that which you desire? And once you do that, a lot of these questions will answer themselves, because now you're focusing on the desire and not the person at the job, not the divorcee person you want to leave. I don't mind confessing, been there, done that more times than I can confess. But what I am learning through this process and these principles is, as long as I'm clear about my desire, I can face and put up with, I want to say almost anything. I would say definitely anything, because it's the desire that drives and pull you closer to becoming that which God has required you to be, to do, and to have. So that's my response. So John, if you want to respond to that, and Peter, if you want to come back and respond to your own question, I think that is how we help individuals who come on here and listen to this podcast, and they have questions and they want to know, okay, I know you're this and I know you're that, but what about me? I have these issues. Can you give me something? And what we will all give all of you, go back to chapter 1. No joke, no kidding. Go back to chapter 1. Don't just read the book. Allow the book to read you alone in a quiet space and a quiet time and but you can listen to it on podcast. That's good. But the pages will live through you if you are clear about what you desire. Johnnie?
Yes, I love that. And it's so true. And I'm with you. I got a couple of those t-shirts you were mentioning, the lost it all t-shirt, from a millionaire to lost it all to gaining it back. But this is not about the money. I totally agree that it's about the person you become. But this is a couple points that I would like to provide to the people that are saying, but me. Don't do the but. Say me. Inside of you is the power to accomplish anything. The question is, and Ann just mentioned it, is that what do you desire? Not what other people desire for you. It's about your freedom. It's about what you desire. So you have to take a moment, and this is the thing. Take a moment in silence, close your eyes, and determine what you want. What are you willing to be all in for? See, in life right now, we're not all into anything. We are not willing to take 100% of ourselves and put it in anything. In a relationship, in a platform, in our profession, we're not, even in our success. It's ours, but we want someone else typically to do it. Someone else can't go to the gym and give you the muscles they just earned. You have to earn your own muscles. And yes, it may cause you to be in some situations, but every decision matters. Going back to the decision, trust me, when you look at not making a decision, do you know that's procrastination? And procrastination is not healthy, is not beneficial, and it's a trick. So make the small decisions every day. You know, like somebody asks you, do you want to go somewhere? And you say, well, it doesn't matter. They take you to a restaurant you don't want to go. And then you say, I didn't want to come here. They asked you. Make a decision. Open our mouths. Be empowered. We are. So start with you. Start with you. Don't look outside you. Start internally with you. And once you make the decision for 30 days, be all in. For just 30 days, be 100% in. Do whatever it takes to make whatever you just signed up to, whatever you're believing for, do it for 30 consecutive days. Remember, Ann talked about affirmations and all those things. Do all of that. Go back and listen to the replay. do everything she listed, because she didn't list it because she didn't have anything better to do. She listed because we know it works. So you have to work it. So that's what I'm gonna say. Be all in, find out what it is, be all in, and then work it. That's what I would share.
I love that. I love in the conversation. I'm actually soaking it all in. I'm taking notes. I'm asking questions in the chat. Thank you, both Ann and Johnnie. I want to echo a little bit of both of what you both just said there. I want to start with Ann. Ann mentioned something that someone reiterated also on YouTube, is that when you have that desire and you are getting ready to make that decision, ensure there is 100% clarity. This can't be confusing. It can't be double-minded. You can't be struggling to figure this out. There needs to be clarity in this decision, because if there's not, it won't get done. Everybody hear me on that. It won't get done, right? And then now if I can echo what also Johnnie mentioned, and I asked this question in the chat also, what is the opposite of decision making? And it is that, it's procrastination. So I love how she even mentioned, just try it for 30 days. Give yourself 30 days. If we can go back to that gym example, right? And we all know we need to be more healthy. We need to eat more healthy. We need to be in the gym more, right? And we need to be intentional about this. And so once you have that desire that you want to lose weight or gain more muscle, what is the decision, the clear decision that you need to make? How about this one? I need to go to the gym. I need to exercise for 15 minutes daily. 15 minutes. 15 minutes. So now you know what you need to do, clarity. You made the decision, 15 minutes. Now you can't step into this procrastination. You have to just go do it. And even again, as Johnnie Lloyd said, why not give yourself a challenge to do it for just 30 days to see what happens? To see what happens. And that's a great example of what this needs to look like. That was the gym. But I wonder what other parts of our lives might we need to step into to be more intentional around this decision making and going to make it happen. Here's my last thing. I'm going to pass it back to Ann. Who is holding you accountable? Who is that buddy, that friend, that colleague, that coach who can partner with you on this decision to hold you accountable for this 30-day challenge, right? And that may be an important part if you know yourself, and sometimes if you might slip off, someone may be able to be that motivator in your life. Ooh, and McNeil, we are getting very deep today.
Well, listen, Johnnie, we're going to come back to you, because if you look at the time is almost up. So, Johnnie, why don't you share with us if you have any particular programs that you're promoting, any particular, events that you're going to be hosting or involved in. We talked about a few things before the podcast started, but can you share with our audience some of your decisions that you've made to be and do and have? And again, I go back to that desire and that decision, which has led to many other decisions, which brings you here today. Can you share with us if you have any kind of programs, books, or anything that you'd like to share with our audience? Because we want to make sure that people have a way to connect with you continuously.
Wow, thank you so much. And I appreciate being here. One of the things that I would like to invite you to is I would like to invite you to your new world. And when I say that, I'm saying that the accountability piece, as Ann McNeil mentioned earlier today, I am a Napoleon Hill certified instructor. I'm a coach. So everybody needs help. The question is are you willing to put in time for maybe 30 days to listen and join in with the Napoleon Hill team? And just reach out to me. My name is Johnnie Lloyd, and you can go out and find me on any platform that way. But what I would like you to reach is my is actually Johnnie Lloyd at johnnielloyd.com. Reach out to me if you're interested in making a difference in your life for the next 30 days, number one. Number two is, because of the decision we made, we're headed to Africa. I have a nonprofit called Raise Up Nation. What we do is we teach people to fish versus giving them a fish. So me and a colleague that is an NHI coach with me, we are working in Ghana. This is our second year, and we need some support. And when I say that, whether it be your prayers or whatever, but more than anything, we need you to be on board with helping yourself as you help others. And then the last thing I would say is this: do us all a favor and be the best you can be. Be the best you can be. You know, last week, Ann McNeil mentioned her granddaughter saying for a penny. She talked about her granddaughter got up, and during a National Speakers Association event, she quoted a poem. And this is what I'll remind us of, is that life will give us whatever we desire when we do the work. So I am Johnnie. It's a privilege to be here. And then finally, and I hope this leads us into what I'm going to say, is that I got my letter back from the... Okay, for those who don't know, I went to International Mastermind with Ann, and they're going to bring it up. And I'm going to tell you this. You talking about want to change in your life? Something that will be your jack-up partner? I'm telling you, invest in yourself. Warren Buffett, everybody talks about what is the one thing you can invest in? Invest in your personal development. This thing has changed my life. And this is what I'm going to say. Even though I have not done everything that is on my list, do you know that I am 1000% better than I was? Do you know just being there in the space for a weekend has made such an impact in my life? It has caused me to do things I would have never done. And part of that is the nonprofit. Part of it is NHI. Part of it is all of that. So you don't want to miss it. You do not want to miss it. Let me say this. You cannot afford to miss it. If you're waiting on somebody else to survive or thrive you or help you, you better help yourself. Help yourself and be at this event. And she didn't ask me that, but I saw it and I wanted to share that because it has made such a powerful impact in my life. And that was a decision. This is key. It was a decision I made, kicking and screaming, and now I'm leaping and jumping. It was powerful. So thank you.
Ooh.
And let me give a little background on that for those who are maybe
Go ahead, Peter. Be my guest.
At our annual Think and Grow Rich accountability meeting every single year, and we are asked to write down one of our goals. And this may actually go to the question that Donnelly has asked us in the chat here, there, Ann McNeil. Donnelly says, oftentimes we make many decisions. It's hard to keep track. What methods do you use to track your decisions and the progression towards your goal? And what I love about what Johnnie just showed us is at the annual accountability meeting every day, we write down our a 6 month, half a year goal. Sure, we have our annual goals, but we have a 6 month goal that we write down on a piece of paper. And the International Mastermind Association says they're going to send us this document 6 months from today. So now when Johnnie received this in the mail, she read it and said, hey, where am I according to this goal that I wrote down on January 3rd or 4th or 5th? Mm-hmm. So now that's a way to track our decisions, hold us accountable. And that's why I love this accountability meeting, because it feeds us on so many different levels. And that's just a small way that Johnnie displayed it right there for sure. Good stuff. Thank you so much for sharing there, Johnnie.
I'm speechless. Okay. Seldom am I speechless, but Johnnie, you got me today because I don't think either one of us, Peter nor myself, could have expressed the way you expressed the impact. And everybody who's come to the podcast, who has attended our annual meeting, has had the same response when they got that letter in the mail. So let me, Peter went back and he gave us a description, but let me go back now since we're discussing decision. Let me go all the way back to the decision that I made. First of all, and thank you, Johnnie, for sharing about the Napoleon Hill Foundation. I'm also certified with the foundation now a long time. I don't want to go talk about how long it's been, but I've been in the book since 1979. And so once I started reading the book and made a decision to do what the book said to do by starting a mastermind group in 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, and we've now been together since then. You can do the math. But what we ended up doing was we ended up meeting every single Saturday, and I'm leading up to the backstory to the annual meeting. We ended up meeting every single Saturday. And we were just focused on the one page 28 in our book, which talked about the 6 keys to riches. And if you're interested in these 6 keys, you can text the word "and," that's ANN. You can text it, text the number 55678, and I'll change my name to reflect that. But we ended up meeting, setting our goals, and then once a month we would review the goals to see how we did. But then we found that at the end of the year, we started trailing off about mid-year. So we started deciding to once a year, we would come together and bring all of our goals in writing to see how did we do for the year. And I actually wrote a book, I don't see it here, but it's called, here it is, How to Start and Run an Effective Mastermind Group. This workbook was the product of that meeting. It is called the McNeil Factor Workbook, How to Start and Run a Successful. Really, it's your life plan. This is actually what this is. But anyway, so once we started meeting once a year in each other's homes, and at one point we had over 90 people in my home. And we knew it was time to take this meeting to a hotel. We took the meeting to the hotel, and every single year, not only do we come, but we bring our families. And we set the goals, started by setting them for 6 months and then 1 year. And we went from 6 months, 1 year to 5 years. Then we went from 6 months, 1 year, 5 years to 10 years. Then we went from 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years to now for me, it's over 40 years. And so just imagine making a decision. And that's why I opened the podcast the way I did about deciding what, who you're going to worship, who you're going to serve. And even if you're an atheist, be the best atheist you can be. Be a Buddhist, be something and connect with something outside of yourself. That's a goal. But what does it look like in writing? And then your family, what does it look like, that goal look like in writing? And Johnnie, I thank you so very much for sharing that powerful experience that you had. And prayerfully, you're going to join us again this January. But yes, awesome. Thank you. I would challenge each of you by faith, decide today. Our investment will double. The investment to come will double. Yes. It will double. You can go to the internationalmasterminders.com and register now, because I'm going to tell all of you who are my friends and who've been coming for years, and you say every year, oh, I missed a deadline. We talk about this 52 times a year. Make a decision. Even if you make the investment and then you decide not to come, you can gift it to someone. We're not giving refunds, no, because we got to make commitments to the hotel. We've decided to do that. But you can sell it to somebody else. But decide, what is it that you want? I'm going to end up with a quick story as I close, but I'm going to go back around. Johnnie, is there anything you would like to share with our listeners about any decision or anything you'd like to share as we wrap up? And then we'll go to Peter, and then I'll close with a quick story about this weekend. Johnnie.
Yes, mine is remember that you're enough and that you're worth it. And that every decision matters. So make your decisions quickly, stay connected to them, and go and just walk it out. Just walk it out. So I encourage you to be the best you can be every moment. That's what I encourage you to do. And continue to stay connected on Saturday, and please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnnie. All right, Dr. Peter.
Yeah, good stuff. Wow, what a powerful show today. And I'm going back to that question that Donnelly asked around, how do you track your decisions? I definitely write my goals down and I put a date by them, especially at the beginning of the year. I have that accountability partner that I let know about my goals. I want to come back and revisit them. I want to see where I'm falling short, where I need to step up. Listen, but the biggest part of this entire decision-making process that many of us have a problem with is our ego, right? And I say that because even just as recent as yesterday, I have a friend and they're going through a challenging time right now, but sometimes we don't ask for help because we're embarrassed, we're ashamed, we don't want to include somebody, our ego gets in the way, maybe a little bit of our pride gets in the way. I'm asking you all to step out of that. If you really have that desire, what will it take for you to get out of your own way? Get out of that pride and that ego in order to step into your desire. What decision do you need to make right now so that you can step out of that and into your phenomenal future? My name is Dr. Peter A. James. I am the high performance coach helping you to shift your mindset. You can find me on any social media platform at Dr. Peter A. James. That's at DrPeterAjames or shiftyourmindset.com. Wow, Ann McNeil, this was a phenomenal show. Now I'm going to sit back and listen to this story. Where's my popcorn?
Oh, my goodness. We already talked about this before the podcast started. And I go back to something that Napoleon Hill shared in the decision principle. He talked about the power that the founders of the Declaration of Independence, when they came together. We have access to the same power if we bring together the principles that are described in this book. And, it's not difficult, really, when you make a decision, but there are basically 6 principles of the 13 that when you mix these principles with your decision, it makes it so much easier to decide. And it's not about the money, like Johnnie said, and we talked about. And that starts with your desire. Decide to have a desire. Have a desire, something you want so badly. And then the decision to have that, but also the decision to work on your faith, the decision to persist until you succeed, the decision to create a mastermind group of accountability to help you with your desire, and then the decision to have organized plans that execution of those plans will help you with that desire. I shared a story before the podcast started. We were just kind of talking, just talking around, waiting for the podcast to start. And I was sharing this story about how early on in this relationship with these principles, I had a desire to go to Africa and I did not have any money. I owned a business, of course, and I had a situation where I had $250,000 taken out of my company and I became homeless. Yes, homeless, penniless, broke and broken. And at the same time, I was going through a divorce with my partner in my business, and I was going through a divorce in my life. Yes, I remarried my husband. That's another show for another day. But both of those things at the same time, and I felt that I just wanted to flee. Just let me just get out. And I desired to go to Africa. And never been, but I wanted to go. I just really wanted to get away physically. It's one thing we talk about the mind, but the body sometimes need to also go away. And I didn't have any money. And I really was panhandling people literally every day. That's another story for another day. But I decided I wanted to go to Africa. And my lawyer for my business, a very good friend of mine by the name of William Stevens, he read an article in a magazine, and he called me up and he said, listen, read this article. I know you are always talking about you want to go to Africa. I said, but you don't have the money. He said, yeah, but why don't you call the people and see if they can work out something with you? I decided to make that phone call. I made that phone call and I explained my situation to the people. And I said, listen, can I send you $20 to $25 per week? I don't have it, but I know I can find $25 per week when I can get it. They said, okay. I made a decision and I made a commitment. This was the African-American Trade Summit by Dr. Leon Sullivan. Dr. Leon Sullivan was the best friend of, help me, now I forgot.
Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela, I shared the story earlier, best friend of Nelson Mandela, and was the first Black to be on a corporate board. And he was the person on that corporate board, manufacturing car company, U.S. car company, where he said, listen, we are not going to continue to do business with South Africa. This was Dr. Leon Sullivan. This was his organization that I contacted. And he gave them permission to tell me, yes, that I could send them that money. And I want all of you to know, I did that. They took that trip for every 2 years, they would take that trip. It was a decision. I did not, let me say it again. I did not have the money. I didn't send it every week like I thought I could, but I couldn't even find $25 a week. I sent them what I could when I could. 2 years of doing that, I was able not only to go myself, but I was able to take my youngest daughter, Ione, on that trip. She was 7 years old. That trip changed my life, to be on that chartered plane with Dr. Sullivan. Years later, we ended up, when Mandela was released from prison, 200 of us ended up going to his home. I never missed one of those trips. Now, I'm sharing this story because ever since then, I have continued to go. And so tomorrow I will be leaving for 3 weeks to go to 6 cities with my family. And I may not be on this podcast if I cannot get connected at the time this podcast will take place. But I want all of you to know money is not the issue. People outside of us is not the issue. Our financial situation and our health and all this is not the issue. It is a lack of decision. And it's actually the indecision to make a decision. And I tell people that fear is the result of doubt and indecision marrying each other, and they birth fear. Decide what you want and trust your faith that the universe, as Emerson says, the universe will conspire to bring you exactly what you desire, but you must decide. And so I cannot say that strongly enough. I cannot say that strongly enough. And again, I may be here next Saturday. I may not be, but I just want to encourage all of you. Thank you so much, Johnnie, Lloyd, for joining us. Thank you, Peter, for always showing up when you can. And all of you travel, so you know what that's like. You don't always know what you're gonna experience. But I will be here if I can. If I can't, then I know you're going to be in great hands. I want to thank all of you for sharing with us. Again, my name is Ann McNeil. I am a builder. I build lives, I build buildings, and I build communities. And I help women in construction to go to the next level. And if you are interested in going to the next level in your business and or your life, you can connect with me by going to annmcneil.com. But I would encourage you and challenge you, text the number 55678. And in the chat, put the word "and," that's ANN. And I will send you back the decision that we all have to make from the desire principle, those 6 keys. But the decision is up to you. All we can do is bring it and bring it and bring it and share it. And as we know, faith comes by hearing and hearing and hearing. And for me, I had to hear it a very long time before I made the decision to have a better quality of life and stop looking at my challenges and my problems, but looking at them as stepping stones to the future. So thank you so very much. We will be back here. The podcast will be back here next Saturday, continuing a different conversation. I'm not going to tell you which one. You can see it in your book. But until then, Peter, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Johnnie, I cannot say enough how much I really appreciate you continuing to come on and bless our guests. All of you that are guests, please remember to comment, like, and share the podcast. But also remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And until next week, remember, continue to think and grow rich.